They laughed at me, whispered behind my back, and treated me like I was nothing. At the family meeting, I was the poor cousin, but they had no idea that I was about to change everything. The room buzzed with chatter, laughter, and the subtle tension of wealth on display. The annual family meeting had turned into a competition of status. Everyone flaunted their success, flashy watches, luxury handbags, and stories of exotic vacations. I sat quietly at the end of the table, keeping my hands folded and my smile polite. My relatives glanced at me occasionally, a mix of curiosity and disdain in their eyes. "So, how's your little job?" Uncle Rashid asked, his tone sharp, almost cruel. "Still scraping by?" A few cousins chuckled, and Zara, always eager to join in, added, "Yeah. Do you even have a car, or are you still taking the bus like always?" I nodded calmly. "I managed just fine, thank you." Their laughter erupted again, louder this time. I let it roll over me, let them think they were winning. They had always underestimated me, mocked me, treated me like I didn't belong. And tonight, I let them believe the same story. Years of being the poor cousin flashed through my mind. The weddings I wasn't invited to, the subtle snubs at family gatherings, the way they whispered behind my back. Every insult, every look of pity or mockery had built a quiet fire inside me. Uncle Rashid leaned back, smirking. "One day, maybe you'll understand what it's like to actually have money." The others nodded, thinking they'd won, thinking I was broken. But I wasn't. I had built a life far beyond anything they imagined. And tonight, the truth would hit them like a storm. I sipped my water calmly, watching them parade their arrogance. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. Patience was my weapon. I let them wallow in their false sense of superiority, waiting for the perfect moment. Outside, I could hear the faint hum of a helicopter in the distance. A small, almost invisible sound, but it was enough to make my heart race with anticipation. I knew it was a signal. Soon, everything would change. Little did they know, the very thing they mocked me for, the idea that I was poor, was about to explode in front of their eyes. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. I could feel the tension in the room thickening. My relatives, still laughing and talking over each other, hadn't noticed a faint vibration beneath their feet. A subtle hum that grew louder with every passing second. "So, any plans to improve your life?" Cousin Bilal asked, leaning forward, his grin smug. "Or are you just going to keep scraping by?" I smiled faintly, keeping my voice calm. "I have plans. Big ones." Their laughter erupted again, but now a few eyebrows raised, curiosity mixing with amusement. Little did they know, I wasn't bluffing. The meeting dragged on. They flaunted their wealth, throwing numbers around like confetti, bragging about new cars, new homes, and fancy holidays. Each word, each boast, only fueled the fire that had been simmering inside me for years. Finally, the meeting seemed to wind down. People began collecting their things, chatting in small groups about upcoming weddings, vacations, and investments. The arrogance in the room was almost suffocating. Then, a new sound cut to the chatter, a deeper, more powerful hum. Heads tilted toward the window. A few turned toward the open backyard doors. Eyes widened, and conversation stuttered to a halt. "What is that?" Zara whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "Probably a drone," Bilal muttered, trying to sound nonchalant. But no, it wasn't a drone. Not even close. The sound grew louder, shaking the floor lightly, rattling glasses. The air seemed charged with electricity, a sense of anticipation none of them could ignore. I excused myself, standing slowly. The entire room's attention snapped to me. "I think someone is here to pick me up," I said casually, as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. The laughter, the teasing, the mocking expressions froze. A collective realization dawned. Something was different. Something was coming. Outside, the helicopter's rotors cut sharply through the air. The backyard gate swung open. The family pressed closer to the windows, eyes wide, mouths agape. Uncle Rashid's smug grin faltered. What is that?" I stepped outside with calm precision, letting my coat flutter slightly in the wind created by the rotors. The helicopter descended, luxury written in every detail. The sleek black body, the tinted windows, the quiet but undeniable power it radiated. My private pilot stepped out, opening the door. "Sir," ready for departure. I looked back at the stunned faces of my family. Every smirk, every mocking glance, every whispered insult over the years hung in the air like smoke, ready to dissipate. I turned slowly, my voice low and deliberate. I believe someone mentioned I was poor. Shock hit them like a tidal wave. Zara stumbled backward. Bilal's jaw dropped. Uncle Rashid's face went pale, a mixture of disbelief and rage simmering behind his eyes. The helicopter's blades roared, a sound of power that none of them had anticipated. I stepped inside, letting the door close behind me. But I left the pilot waiting. A small detail, but deliberate. I wanted every second of their stunned silence to stretch into eternity. From the window, I could see them still frozen. They had no words. Their arrogance, their superiority, all shattered in the span of a few moments. They had mocked me, humiliated me, treated me like an outsider. And now they realized how wrong they had been. I pressed my finger lightly on the controls, and the helicopter lifted effortlessly into the sky. The backyard, once the center of their prideful gathering, seemed small, insignificant. The room below felt like a cage of embarrassment, filled with the people who had once thought they were untouchable. Uncle Rashid tried to speak. "Wait, this isn't..." But no one listened. There were no words that could fix their broken pride. I didn't need to explain. I didn't need to lecture. My revenge was complete in its simplicity. Shock, awe, and the revelation that appearances could be deceiving. As we rose higher, leaving the stunned family behind, I allowed myself a small smile. Years of planning, years of keeping quiet, had led to this moment. I didn't gloat loudly. I didn't make a scene. My presence, my success, and the silent but undeniable message of the helicopter were enough. And for the first time in years, I felt an almost sweet satisfaction. They had treated me like a joke, but the joke was over. The tables had turned. As we soared above the city, I knew this was only the beginning. The true impact of their humiliation would reach them in ways they could never expect. And when they tried to recover, it would be too late. The city below looked small from the helicopter, the streets winding like threads of gold and gray. I leaned back in my seat, the leather soft, my mind replaying expressions on their faces. Shock, confusion, humiliation, every single one of them frozen in disbelief. I had waited for this moment for years, and now that it had arrived, I allowed myself a small smirk. My relatives had spent decades assuming I was nothing. They had laughed at my humble beginnings, brushed off my achievements, and flaunted their wealth as if it were a crown of superiority. But their arrogance had blinded them to the truth. I had quietly built an empire, and tonight I had revealed it. Yet, even in my satisfaction, I wasn't done. True revenge wasn't just about shock. It was about leaving a mark that would linger, that would make them think twice before underestimating me again. Back at the family home, I imagined their reactions. Uncle Rashid pacing the living room, trying to process how I could afford a helicopter. Bilal frantically scrolling through social media, hoping for a clue, a hint, anything that would make sense of my sudden appearance and luxury. And Zara, she would be whispering to anyone who would listen, repeating the words she couldn't believe she had heard. "He's rich?" I let my mind wander to the past, to the countless times they had mocked me, the holiday dinners where they ignored my presence, the inheritance conversations where my name was barely mentioned, the countless casual insults, the sideways glances, the laughter I had swallowed quietly. Every memory strengthened my resolve. Revenge wasn't just satisfaction. It was justice, served in a way that they could never deny. The pilot broke my thoughts. "Sir, we're approaching the private estate." I nodded. The estate was a hidden gem, nestled on the outskirts of the city, sprawling acres of landscape gardens, fountains, and a mansion that could rival a five-star hotel. Most of my family had never even heard of this place, and those who would have assumed it belonged to someone else entirely. Stepping out onto the balcony, the evening sun reflecting off the glass and marble, I allowed myself a moment to enjoy the view. The city stretched endlessly in the distance, lights twinkling like stars brought down to earth. And somewhere down there, My family was still grappling with their shattered perceptions. I picked up my phone and typed a single message. Short, precise, enough to make them squirm. Check the backyard. You'll see who you really underestimated. Within minutes, I knew the message would reach them. Phones would buzz, panic would set in, and they would finally realize that their assumptions had cost them their dignity. As I settled into the study of my estate, I thought about the next step. The helicopter stunt had been the opening act, the dramatic reveal that would leave them speechless. But true revenge required a final, unforgettable strike, something that would ensure they never forgot this night. I opened the drawer of my desk and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were invitations, private, exclusive, and impossibly luxurious. A family gathering, yes, but on my terms. No mocking, no arrogance, no false superiority. Only the ones who had doubted me, invited to witness their misjudgment firsthand. The message would be clear. I had arrived. I had won. And they were no longer in control. I leaned back in my chair, smiling as I imagined their faces when they received the invitations. Little did they know, the true finale of my revenge was still to come, and it would leave them utterly speechless. The invitations were sent, sleek black cards with gold lettering, addressed personally to each family member who had dared to mock me. I knew their pride would prevent them from refusing, even if their curiosity was tinged with fear. Pride and greed, after all, were easy levers to pull. Within hours, RSVPs began arriving. Some were cautious, others confident, still believing they could outshine me somehow. That overconfidence would be their undoing. The day of the gathering arrived. I chose a private, lavish hall within my estate, decorated with understated elegance. No gaudy displays, no exaggeration, just wealth, power, and subtle intimidation in every detail. Crystal chandeliers, velvet seating, and a panoramic view of the city reminded them silently of the life I had built, unnoticed until now. They arrived one by one, their expressions a mixture of apprehension and disbelief. Uncle Rashid's jaw was tight, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal assessing threats. Bilal tried to laugh, but it was forced, shaky. Even Zara, who had always been confident, faltered as she took in the grandeur. I greeted them warmly, my smile calm, almost casual, as if we were merely meeting for tea. The subtle tension in the air was intoxicating. Every step I took, every word I spoke, reminded them silently that they had underestimated me for years. "So, this is impressive," Zara said, her voice betraying a mix of awe and fear. I simply nodded, keeping my tone casual. "Thank you. I thought it was time to host a proper family gathering." They tried to make small talk, but the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. Every glance, every gesture, was a silent acknowledgement of their humiliation. They had mocked me for years, and now they were painfully aware that their assumptions had been catastrophically wrong. I led them to the dining area, where the table was elegantly set, but the centerpiece was not flowers. It was a subtle display of my power. Invitations, contracts, and glimpses of my private ventures laid neatly in envelopes, each labeled to hint at my wealth, success, and influence. Uncle Rashid's hands trembled slightly as he reached for one. Bilal stared at his own, unable to hide his shock. Their arrogance had dissolved, leaving only the raw realization that they had misjudged me. I spoke softly, deliberately, letting each word sink in. For years, I was a quiet one, the one you assumed was poor and unimportant. Tonight, you see the truth. The room fell silent. No laughter, no mockery, only stunned faces, each trying to process the reality that the cousin they had humiliated was not only successful, but far beyond anything they had imagined. Then I paused, letting the moment stretch. Silence has a power that words can never match. Finally, I added, "You see, wealth isn't about showing off every day. Sometimes it's about letting people think you're weak. So the reveal hits harder." They had no response. Words failed them. They had underestimated me for decades, and now they were powerless to change their perception. The final act of my revenge was simple, yet devastating. The demonstration of calm control, the silent assertion of dominance, and the revelation that everything they assumed was a lie. I didn't need to gloat. The truth spoke for itself. By the end of the evening, they left quietly, their pride shattered, their arrogance diminished. I had turned their mockery into a lesson they would never forget, and the satisfaction was complete. As the last of them departed, I stood by the balcony, looking out at the city, and smiled. They thought they had seen the full extent of my success. But the true finale of my revenge was yet to come. The night air was crisp, the city lights glittering below like a river of gold. I stood on the balcony, watching the last of my relatives drive away, their cars smaller than mine, their faces pale with the sting of humiliation. But I wasn't finished. True revenge, the kind that left a mark forever, required one final stroke. Inside, I prepared a brief message to the family group chat they all still clung to. One image. Just one. A photo of the helicopter in the backyard, my private pilot opening the door, and a single caption: "Assumptions are dangerous." Within minutes, notifications exploded. Calls, texts, frantic questions. Uncle Rashid's voice trembled when he called me. How is this possible? I answered calmly, letting the silence hang, savoring the moment. "You underestimated me." I said simply, "That's your mistake." The power of the moment wasn't in confrontation. It was in realization. Their arrogance, their false sense of superiority, crumbled without me needing to raise my voice. I thought back to every insult, every sideways glance, every cruel whisper from years past. Each one had led to this moment. And now, I could leave them with nothing but their embarrassment and the memory of underestimating me. As dawn approached, I took one last glance at the city from my balcony. The helicopter was parked neatly in the estate's hangar, a silent testament to the life I had built while they assumed I had nothing. I allowed myself a small smile. The ultimate revenge wasn't just the helicopter or the estate. It was the revelation, the shock, the knowledge that they had misjudged me completely. Pride can break faster than bones, and tonight I had proven it. I decided to leave them with one more subtle reminder. I took the helicopter back over the city, flying low past their houses. From above, the sight of their small, modest homes juxtaposed with the luxury of my aircraft was a statement louder than any words could convey. Each familiar street I passed, I imagined their faces pressed to the windows, eyes wide with disbelief. For years, they had judged me as poor, insignificant, weak. Now they saw the truth, and there was nothing they could do to change it. As I landed at a distant location, I felt a sense of closure. Revenge had a sweet taste, especially when delivered with calm precision, without unnecessary drama. Their laughter, once at my expense, was gone. In its place, shock, shame, and the knowledge that appearances can deceive. Just as I thought it was over, I sent one final message to the family group. Next time you judge someone, remember this night. The silence that followed was deafening. No words, no explanations, no excuses. The arrogance that had once filled the room was replaced by humility they didn't want to admit. I leaned back, sipping my drink, and thought, revenge isn't just about proving a point. It's about showing people the consequences of underestimating you. If I were in this situation, here's what I would have done. I would have stayed patient, let them underestimate me, and then reveal my success in a way that left a permanent impact. Quiet, precise, and unforgettable. No anger, no yelling, just undeniable truth. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.